Shalom, Hebrews. We have now reached the point in our quest where we will be clothed with scarlet and have a chain of gold wrapped around thy neck. Okay, that's why, especially the War of Roses, Lancaster, was it York? They always wore these livery collars. So now, to understand the interpretation, we have to go to the Tower of Babel, what was really going on. That's what we will be discussing this video. So, nobody understands what was really going on with the Tower of Babel. Nobody talks about it. What was really going on? So, they had one speech. What was the problem with that? We have one speech right now, the vulgar English, right? All of aviation in the world uses English. If you're in Japan, you have to learn English. All right, so we're under one tongue right now. That's what the King James 1611 was and is. So now, and that's why Europe during the Dark Ages, literally all these small little countries had their own tongues. That's why it was the vulgar tongue, the vulgar Latin, I should say. And that's why the word was lost during the Dark Ages. Okay? So that's very strange that they're so close, these tiny little countries, and they're all speaking different languages. You gotta stop and think about how strange that was. That's why there was that one Bible translation in Latin, right? Now, what was the issue with the Tower of Babel? We'll look into it. It says, nothing will be restrained from them. What is that talking about? Really, an impregnable fortress is really how that should be interpreted, okay? This is that word that's used for restrain there in Genesis 11, okay? It's really talking about inaccessible. Their one speech, their one tongue. Okay, what's the sea of glass? One tongue. Okay, problem is we're in a brass and iron kingdom right now. A phoenix cycle. It needs to be born, destroyed, rebirth, all of that. So, the Tower of Babel was, as we've talked about plenty of other videos, the lost word being found and built, rebuilt, and lost, okay? So this lost word, this bone marrow in masonry, look up the word for the name that was written on his thigh, King of Kings and Lord of Lords, it's marrow, okay? That's another way of saying the lost word of masonry, the lost bone, right? Tubal cain, but it's the dog, or I should say dogs have penile bones, animals have penile bones, humans doesn't, so that's Adam's lost bone, okay? That's really the word for rib. It's appendage to the body. Adam's rib was not a rib. It was obviously this penile bone. Okay, that's why there's a seam on a scrotum, right? I know it happens during birth, but that's symbolic where God sewed up Adam. So that's what was created Eve out of. So that's why Jacob had that thigh wound. Look up the word. It goes right back to rib. That's why they make the covenants with the hand on the thigh. That's what it's really talking about. So, and again, it's just another way of saying the lost word. So the Tower of Babel, Order Rab Cow, we talked about this in my other videos, is just another way of saying the lost word found. So they go around making these ziggurats, and what's at the top? You have the initiated, you have the Vestal Virgins, you have the priest kings initiated. That's the inner circle of King Arthur's court. Okay? So another way of saying the people in the know, right? So they, at the top, have the lost word. The people at the bottom do not. But what's the definition of an apocalypse? Everyone finding the truth, coming awake, you're realizing it's no longer left or right wing, Democrat, Republican. No, it's just the two wings of the same bird. So everyone in the apocalypse becomes one speech. That's what the Tower of Babel was about. So now in the apocalypse, just another way of saying a jubilee. We all have one word. We're of one accord. It's no longer two wings, but it's it's the same bird now. Okay? So now, what happens? When you're all one accord, that's why God had a problem with them being one tongue. Because when you're one accord in a brass and iron kingdom, you need to perpetuate this rebirth cycle, right? So, that's why the tongues were confused after they built this. So again, what happens after they build this? An obelisk is the same It's the same it's a symbol, okay? It's the same symbol as the Tower of Babel, and it's got the alchemical formula written on it. And alchemical formula is another way of just saying the lost word, right? Because the Bible is an alchemical formula. So, they build this tower, the obelisk, and then the philosopher's stone is the stone that's cut without hands that strikes the image of the beast. So they both build the image and then they destroy the image. That's why it's called Order Ab Cow. It just starts the cycle all over again. I don't know if you guys see my post where I put this. Okay, it shows the difference between Manly P. Hall's version of Philosopher's Stone and the one at the 32nd degree. It's 12 verse 9 zodiacs. Okay, I'm sure people watching this have seen my other videos, but you find the 3 missing stones at that Revelation 9:14. Look up the breastplate on the horse rider, okay? That's where the 3 lost stones were, and will be found, and these are Trump's, Cyrus, who is Cyrus the Great, his master masons, pillaging mystical Babylon. That's what's going on right now. So that's why I put the stone cut out without hands, 2024, striking, the philosopher's stone strikes the image. What is the image? It's just the Tower of Babel or an obelisk. You see how that works? So right before they do a war, they set up an obelisk, and then they tear down the obelisk. So that's what's going on. That is why the word is lost, the word is found, a ziggurat is built, an obelisk is built, and then is destroyed with these Masonic encampments. Okay? Again, compare that list to Ezekiel 28 to Exodus 28, and that missing row, that missing third row. 2 are a direct match. Okay, the third is somewhat lost in translation because it's brimstone, but keep in mind, we're going from Hebrew to Greek. Okay, so, yeah, it's not going to be... 2 out of 3 is very... And it's talking about a breastplate, so that is a very obvious calling card, okay? So that is where we are in the time of history. Cyrus the Great, Trump, election, he's crossing the Euphrates, the mystical Euphrates, that's the economies of the world, okay? And these 3 colors are also the colors of the Swiss Guard. Okay, it's probably, we're in spiritual antitypical Persia right now. Again, that's why Cyrus the Great in Daniel 8, talking about the ram and lamb is the same thing. That's why the priest kings dress up as lambs. Okay, Freemasonry is antitypical spiritual Persia. Okay, in contrast to mystical Babylon, which is continental Europa, right? Europa is the daughter of the king of Tyre. That's where it comes from. All right, king of Tyre had a daughter, named her Europa. She migrated to Europe. Okay, so that's why it's Babylon. That's why it's all Babel, because they're all speaking different tongues. And then the British crown is actually the seat of Persia. Antitypical Persia, the Masonic British crown. Again, that's why they dress up as lambs. Okay, all the priest kings have always dressed up as lambs. It goes back to the Order of the Golden Fleece and goes back to the Garden of Eden. Okay, that's where that comes from. So this idea that once they're one speech, they're now inaccessible. It's also look up the word. It's also gather grapes. Think about Revelation and the grapes of wrath, trampling the winepress, right? So again, they can't be inaccessible because we need to perpetuate this cycle down here, okay? So once there's enough slots in heaven, then the cycle ends, time ends, okay? So I know it's not really, yeah, we got the King James 1611, but not many people understand it. So you can say, yeah, we're technically under one speech right now, but not that many people understand the Bible. The cycle's still going. It's all symbolic, okay? I just wanted to explain some things on this. In case you were wondering where the origin of 1260 comes from, it's actually on these sanctuary pieces. So I don't know if you remember mid-May, in 2018, I think, they had the Baal arches. They went on the world tour. It was a couple years, I believe, but they went to all these big cities. They put these Baal arches up. And that's what that was talking about. The Solomon's Pillars were erected then, and then obviously of Corona was coronation of the harlot, and that started. Technically, you can find articles that came out in right around here of 2019. And then, so that was what starts this 1260, and then here we are now. Okay, the Euphrates is dried. It's Trump, Cyrus the Great, is now crossing. We're also circling Jericho with the Ark of the Covenant. It's the difference between quicksilver and real silver, and that's why the woman standing on the moon, real silver, clothed the sun gold, and has a garland of 12 stars. It's the 12 tribes. So when the 12 Masonic encampments align with the 12 tribes of Israel, that is the apocalypse. Okay? That is the fall of Babylon. So you got to understand, when the Son of Man returns, people think it's literal. It's very much so mystical. Everything's mystical. So it's a mirror above. There's probably a silver and gold obelisk right above the British crown, and you have a brass and iron obelisk below it. So as the armies, Cyrus the Great crosses Euphrates, you have the parallel above with the armies of heaven, Yeshua, with the word written on his side, King of Kings and Lord of Lords, the bone marrow, the lost bone, and that's what it's talking about. So the second coming has technically happened with the election. It's just a matter of how long does it take for mystical Babylon to fall, okay? Just real quick, something else I forgot. Oh, what's red, white, and blue right there? Why all the flags from Lamentations, okay? So that's where the red, white, and blue comes from of the American flag. So I hope you enjoyed that one, and we'll continue.